Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Different dates for different states, but in the state of Osun, I think they have like 11 more days of this particular administration headed up by Ogbeni Aregbe Shola. And I have with me in the studio someone who is very closely attached to Osun, has worked in Osun for a very long time, is a member of the House of Assembly in the past 4 years, and before that, he had come from the banking sector and had always been sort of almost, I can't say hand in glove, but what I mean to say is that the working has been so very tight and synchronized. So by the time you even went into government, you knew quite a bit about the economy of the state of Osun. I'm talking about Honorable Tunde Olatunji, who's a development economist, and as I said before, a member of the Osun State House of Assembly. And well, in 11 days or so, everything, the administration of Aregbe Shola will bow out and it will be replaced. First of all, maybe I could find out from you if you think the state of Osun has much to celebrate in your field. I'm talking about you being a development economist and haven't seen the economy then, and then leaving it now, as you must. If there has been appreciable progress, because members of your party will say so. Opposition, of course, are saying something else. But as a trained professional, give me your opinion, sir.
Good morning. It's good to be here. I think
Our pleasure.
I will address this issue, or this discussion. I will be speaking more of, someone is a professional, and so we'll be looking at the facts and the figures. We'll not dwell on sentiment and comment. And so it's very.
Is Osun any richer today, by the way? A common question. Is Osun any richer today than when the administration of Aregbe?
Of course. Let's even look at the GDP to start with. Osun State GDP, as at 2010, when this administration came on board, was valued at about 191.1 billion naira. And today, as of 2018, we have a state with a GDP of about 398 billion naira. And you look at that, that's well over 100% increment in GDP. And like some of us are there to argue, it's not even enough for us to look at the global picture in terms of GDP. We begin to look at per capita income and also how the GDP is structured. I mean, what is the economic structure of an entity, which in this case is the state that we call Osun. And so if you look at that in terms of the number of jobs that have been created, if you look at in terms of the business volume, if you look at that in terms of the poverty level, which I need to say this, the recent release that was done last month by United Nations Development Program Office, UNDP, and NBS, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, put Osun as the state with the lowest poverty rate in Nigeria. And so that speaks for itself. That's from an independent source. We're talking of a world-class institution like UNDP. I talk about the NBS. I mean, these are institutions that has no respect for any state. I mean, they churn out figures exactly the way they are. And so that is even coming to us. These are facts that leads credence to the fact that indeed Osun has witnessed development in the last 8 years. And we must also say this, the Mystery Index reports that was released by the Financial Derivative Company Limited in January puts Osun as #2 in the country in terms of the second least miserable state in the country. I mean, these are reports, these are figures coming from great companies. And also Smedan, in partnership with the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, again, also was able to make us realize that Osun moved from 481,000 micro, small, and medium enterprise it had in 2010 to about 1.3 million today. So you look at the number of
3
micro, small,
million.
and medium enterprises we have, as you know, adjudged by Smeden and NBS, puts our figure currently at 1.3 million from 491,000 that was inherited. So if you look at that, you're looking at jobs of about 900,000 that were being created.
Let me just ask something.
These are figures that...
Yes, these are facts and figures, and it's pretty good to know. Coming from 481,000, jobs
Small and
to small industries and jobs and that kind of. I'm looking from there to 1.3 million. Perhaps that's part of the answer to the question I was going to ask, which is, so what did this administration in Osun do differently that would have taken them from 191 billion revenue up to 2018 figure, which you've just given us, which is 398? Something radically different must have been going on. I'd like to be enlightened on that.
Well, thank you for that very important question. I mean, it's very simple. We realize that as a people, you start with Osun State population. It's a figure put between 4.5 and 4.8 million, depending on whose report we're actually adopting. And so we look at that. By any standard, there are no less than 100 countries of the world that does not have a population of 4.5 million, which means if Osun today were to be, given independence to become a country of its own, we're bigger than about 102 countries of the world. And so that is huge. That is massive. But then prior to 2010, what do we have? We have a state that the answer on everybody's lips are, oh, that's a civil servant state. There's nothing in Osun. It's agrarian. It's agrarian. I mean, and then we start to sit down. I mean, how do you describe an economy of a people with that large number? 4.5 million has been monolithic, has just been civil service denominated, has just been agrarian. We knew that it is very important, it's compulsory for us to make deliberate investment into the opening up of our economy. There is growing need for us to diversify. There is need for us to come up with structures, lay architectures that will allow people to thrive in various fields that interest them, where we have comparative advantage. And so we had to invest massively because all over the world, infrastructure is the backbone of every sustainable development and growth.
And we'll come and talk we're going to come to infrastructure because in trying to understand it, and I'm so grateful that you being so closely attached to the state of Osun and also being a development economist and having had a background in banking before coming into government, you're very well placed to understand these things better than most, perhaps. Most people just, at the end of the day, want to have food on the table. And there's a lot, that goes into making
food available on the table.
And taking it for granted.
Exactly.
But I wanted to ask you, because of something you got to, what is the state of Osun's area of comparative advantage?
Oh, a whole lot. If you look at the demography of our population, over 50 to 60% are aged below 25. And arguably, we have the highest number of tertiary institutions in Nigeria. And so that made us realize that education is key. It also made us realize that the agricultural resources that we have, we must take it from that level of subsistence to real agribusiness and develop the value chain. But why was it that it was the same cocoa farmland that we inherited in the days of the late sage Obafemi Awolowo that we can still point out as the level of production that we were still pointing out as at 2010? It is because there were no infrastructure. It is because there are no roads that connect the farm and the market. It is because people don't even know that through modern agri practices, there are some other crops that can be grown, even in Osun, that cucumber can thrive, that carrot can thrive, that watermelon
The
can thrive.
climate is such.
Oh, yeah. And so that we can even introduce greenhouse farming and begin to see results.
When you
And
say
so,
we can,
so that was
have you?
Oh, of course. That is
Okay.
where I'm going.
Okay.
Those were the things.
greenhouses.
Those were
There
those were the things that we saw. Those were the realities on ground as at 2010. Osun State has 9, agri-farm settlements, and they were largely moribund. You walk into the Ministry of Agri as at 2010, you fill a form, and then with all other documentation, you have access to free 10 hectares of land because nobody was interested. But I tell you today, it got to a point that we had to set up what we call a land bank in Osun. Agri holding land bank. Because there were
A land bank.
A land bank. The government had to come in, get the lands from the locals on lease to those who are interested in farming. That is, we are the only state in the country that has that arrangement. Why was it so? Because even the 9 farm settlements that we had that were largely moribund at 2010 had been fully taken over by people. Driving to Lagos today, I saw not less than 10 trucks of banana and plantain leaving Mokori and Ikiri axis coming to Lagos. You go to the street of Lagos today, you would see that plantain chips has taken over some of the sausage and beef rolls that we know. Bulk of the plantain that serves that industry comes from my state. That was the state where nothing was happening prior to that time. We had to look into agri and develop the value chain. The agri sector today employs a good number of our people, and not just at the level of production. We begin to see additional values. And so what we have simply done is to look at what are the global standards. How is it done in any part of the world? You look at Netherlands. Netherlands is the 2nd largest exporter of agri-products in the world, just after the United States. But of course, it's just the same population like that of Lagos, and only 2% of that Dutch population is into agri. So that gives you that the entire farmers in the Dutch farmland, they are less than 200,000. And they're the 2nd largest exporter of agri-products in the world.
Exactly.
That means they're doing something different. What are they doing different? They're putting in place infrastructure. They are, ensuring that their farmers are trained on modern farming practices. They give support, like we do. We put in over R1 billion into various loans to support agri in my state. Today, our school feeding program, which is the most scientifically managed in the country.
Okay.
And what do I mean?
Actually, you've gone on to another subheading as you're going to the feed, because you were on agric, and I'd like to just, because you said something that interested me there. You spoke about not just agric for agric's sake and export and all of that, but you said, increasingly being able to add value. You spoke about cocoa, and you lamented the fact that it's still very much where it was until you came along and looking at it. I wanted to ask you
what intervention we have done on cocoa, for instance.
One, but also that question of value added. As you know, they're crazy about chocolate, and a lot of, in the West especially, and there's so very much that is cocoa-based. Now, where the money is in that, unfortunately, for Africa, as you know, you don't need me to tell you, has been that they are making the money over there in Switzerland, in Denmark, in all of those places, because they buy the cocoa from us, turn it into luxury goods, come back and put it in our supermarkets,
I totally agree with you. And I'll say this, I'm very happy you cited that. We had to do a research on our own, as a people, as a state. And we realized that the largest export of cocoa in the world is Cote d'Ivoire Ivory Coast. It has never made more than $3 billion in a year from cocoa. The chocolate industry alone, which is one of the derivative of cocoa, worth about $100 billion. And there's a singular company in the United States that grosses excess of $15 billion from cocoa. There is no singular tree of cocoa in their land. So we are too keen to this opportunity. And today, a visit to Osun, specifically in Ede, will tell you that we now have our cocoa processing factory that is alive. We did not build it from the scratch, I need to say this.
Okay.
That was inherited, one of the heritage of the state from the old Oyo Empire.
A cocoa processing facility.
But it has been abandoned more. But it was not that it was even at suboptimal, product. It was not working for years until this application came in. But I'm happy to tell you that in the last 2 years, gotten an investor, the largest confectionery producer in China. Today, from Ede, we produce what we call cocoa powder and cocoa syrup. And as I'm speaking with you, and that's why I'm happy that I'm speaking, on a platform where some of these things can be checked. Your camera to cocoa industry in Ede would substantiate what I'm saying. Will not come on here and say things that are not factual or real or distort fact. We need to say things the way they are. And as I'm talking to
as
you,
you said,
equipment.
this was inherited. You
We
didn't start this from
inherited
scratch.
an
But it was
obsolete.
moribund. Okay.
Obsolete.
Okay.
So the investment had to mean bringing in equipment afresh, injecting new capital, giving it's now functional, employed people, and as we pay the two products from what we call the cocoa processing industry in Ede, the state of Osun, are cocoa powder and cocoa syrup, which are the ingredients for making chocolate. As I speak to you, equipment are already in the warehouse that will be installed, and hopefully, according to the discussion that was held with the new partners who are Chinese, chocolate will begin to come out of Osun in the next 2-3 quarters. They gave us second quarter of next year when the equipment must have been fixed. But as I speak, you have cocoa powder and cocoa syrup leaving from Ede.
Wow.
And we are the only one that has such facility. And so not only that, we set up what we call the state has an investment arm. And I don't want to mention him so that he won't charge me at the end of the program. But one of the things that investment has done is to cultivate hundreds of hectares of farmland with new cocoa breeds. And the government too, we also had to support our farmers to go and replace the old and aging cocoa plantation.
Let me spend a little time where you just got to. I like, because you spoke about how this administration lamented the fact that the way it's been in this vital industry, cocoa, is very much the way we've met it, and so we've got to do something about
differently.
it. Now you spoke about acres and acres of fresh cocoa plantations, and then these are improved breeds. It seems so logical. I wonder why nobody did it before you guys came.
Well, I need to say this, and I've had cause to say that there's no administration that has been in charge of my state that has not done something.
Okay.
Okay. Not only let me say this, that has not done something. Not only in terms of agric. Everybody has done something to the best of their ability.
Okay.
Even right from the days of the military. But something significant that happened in the last 8 years that is unprecedented, that is unrivaled, that is unmatched. It's like a state that was witnessing what we can call a growth at an arithmetic rate, but suddenly it's got geometric. And these are the things. So what we have seen in the last 8 years, I mean, it's unmatched with what has happened. I can safely say that this has given birth to the new Osun that we can all be proud of.
Wow.
That is on the part of sustainability and is a state to watch out for.
Indeed. I mean, I'm particularly impressed by the figure, the GDP you gave. You started at the beginning. You said it's not everything, but coming from 191 billion when you started to 2018, 398 billion shows that
106%.
Shows that
significant.
One or two things have been got right.
Significant.
To put it mildly. All of this, of course, goes with enlightenment, education, and that kind of a thing. The state of Osun paid attention to education because I remember that way back, I think in the first year, if not maybe first or second year, something was introduced that got attention around the country, Okmoimo. It was a tablet.
Knowledge of
yes, it was a
knowledge.
tablet. It was a tablet, really. I wanted to ask, there are those who say that was a gimmick, but you can give me a more realistic assessment. This Okmoimo, this tablet that was supposed to be issued free to every school child in Osun State and would help in so many different ways. You don't need to buy too many textbooks, etc., etc. Give me an overview of that whole thing.
Well, thank you very much. That was a very novel, another novel idea and concept by this administration, that the UNESCO itself had written to us to commend that act and say that this is the way to go for all other subnational governments and national governments to even copy and adopt. And we've seen even entities outside Nigeria.
But has it been a success?
It has been a huge success.
It is still in operation?
Of course, and I need to add.
Sure.
We don't need to be, to throw figures that are not real. We have not been able to give it to every student in the state.
But that was the ideal.
What we have been able to do now, you see the high school student, our high school students.
Okay.
With Okpoimo. It's also a function of the resources at our disposal. But then, as the resources keeps increasing, we continue to add more.
Okay.
But we need to say this: what has even been the impact of? It's not enough for government to come up with policies and programs, either just for it to be cosmetic or to appeal to themselves. We must begin to measure the impact on the education sector. When prior to 2010, or let me even say 2010 to be specific, the pass rate for our high school student in external exams, particularly in WAEC, is about 15.6%. That is a pass rate, which means when we present, high school students for WAEC exams, about 15% of them would come out with 5 credits that will include mathematics and English.
15. Okay, 15.
And that was why the first major assignment of the administration in 2010 was what the whole world got to see. That was the Education Summit that was chaired by the Nobel laureate, Professor Wole Soyinka, to say, our education is in shambles. It's nothing to write home about. Can you look into this for us with all other, it's major stakeholders in the education sector, and come up with a recommendation which will follow through the diligence, which we have done. And I'm happy to inform you that from that 15% average, the last result that was out, we have moved to over 48%. We're now about 48%. Not just that, the pass rate in mathematics and the last WAEC in Osun State is 70%, and the pass rate in English is over 50%. That the 48% average is the highest in the history of our state. Well, we're not celebrating that enough because that's not where we're going. But for a state that was doing 15% average to move to 48%, I'm sure that's over 300% increment.
Which also speaks, I would imagine.
And that is supposed to mean that the intervention in education in terms of Okpoimo is working. Not just that, we have the best public school infrastructure in the country. I've had cause to tell people I don't even call those things schools. I don't call those structures schools for a public institution. I call them human capital development factory. A child goes or passes through that high school or middle school, and it comes out a complete human being. It comes out with a changed mindset. His body, his soul, and spirit has been transformed. So we have, for instance, as we speak, we have 11 model high schools. About 6 have been completed and functional. Each can house 3,000 pupils with all facilities, ICT facilities.
How many of these were inherited?
Sport facilities, none.
Okay.
None.
Okay.
These are new structures. And, Mr. President himself had to personally come to commission schools. For Mr. President to come and commission schools, when he got there, he said, your government is too ambitious. That was his word. And I can tell anybody to go there and verify. If you cannot find anything like the public high schools, the modern ones you will see in Osun.
Okay.
You will not find it. You will not find it anywhere.
But did you push it too far within available resources? There was the unfortunate story of one collapse. One of those things collapsed, and we can't dodge it. That we can't pretend we didn't.
Sorry, what collapsed?
One of those model structures. Was there not news that?
No.
That was not the state of Osun.
No, not state of Osun. None collapsed. I would tell you, they were actually turnkey projects. those schools, I mean, it comes with all the structures we need.
So
And
that must be my mistake. No
collapse.
Model.
No collapse. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, we go online, you see some of these things, but beyond that is that we're even inviting people to come and see.
Okay.
I mean, any part of the state you find yourself, you can see one. You go to Osogbo, you see Osogbo High School. You go to Iwo, you see in Iwo, you see in Ejigbo, you see. And as I'm saying, this week, we are commissioning 2.
More of those model schools.
We are commissioning 2. We are commissioning 1 in Ile-Ife. The Odudua College, the Ronon Odudua College in Ile-Ife, now has its own ultra-modern school facility project. That will be commissioned. We have another one that will also coming up in Ilan. That will be commissioned. So these are huge investments. But I need to say this: it did not just come without a price. And every opportunity to say this, we must commend our people for making it possible. The people of Osun sacrificed both the leadership and the followership for us to have whatever we can talk about today. It did not just happen because of the will of the leadership or the government alone. It happened because the people cooperated. The people know that they have to sacrifice today for them to have a tomorrow. And so you look at the old women, the younger ones, the workers, the civil servants, those in the informal sector, everybody sacrificed. But we're happy, and everybody's happy, that we can see the result of our investment. We can see that today we are better off. We can see that what has actually happened is that nobody can come and just describe Osun by just one human activity. You can now see emerging businesses. Prior to this time, you cannot see an iron steel manufacturing company. You come to Osun today, we are home to 2-3 major iron and steel manufacturing companies. The famous brewery that we have in our state that was not working, of course, it doesn't belong to government, but investors will look at where they have their naval environment and put in their money. Today, it is working to the maximum of capacity, and it has been expanded. You begin to look at even the small and the medium scale industry that I talked about the other time. For instance, prior to 2010 in my state, you cannot see any accredited major outlet of an electronics product in my state. Prior to 2010, you cannot get it. So the closest we do is to go to Ibadan. I was in banking then, so when we give people facility for personal loans, or they want to get lease on some major electronic items, so after availing the facility, we will have to go to either Ibadan or Lagos, in Surulere or somewhere, to go and pick from there. That's where we have the accredited distributor. But today, virtually all electronic companies have accredited, outlets in Osun. My state could not sustain the presence of 2 branches of any financial institution prior to 2010. You have to close one for the other. Even that at the time of consolidation, those who were fortunate or lucky, which was supposed to be lucky, to have 2 consolidating institutions in the same location, one will have to be closed down for the other. But today, you see banks even expanding their outlets to even as much as 3 in one particular location, owing to increase in the income level, owing to the increase in the customer base, and of course the revenue, and then the assets. So these are empirical facts. Banks don't spring up where there are no businesses, and of course they don't expand their operation if there's nothing on the table. I was in that sector, and I know that for any of our branches at that time to cross the 250 million deposit-based benchmark prior to 2010 was huge. But today you see branches doing balance sheets in billions. In this emotion, this is huge.
We're going to take a break at this time. And this is it's quite exciting. So when we come back, you'll continue. But we'll also open the phones so that maybe we can get some contributions from home as well. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and we're looking at developments in Osun State with development economist Tunde Olatunji, who is also a member of the Osun State House of Assembly. It's been quite exciting. What you've been saying has been the difference. If you've just joined us, we were told how the GDP in Osun, just skyrocketed in 2018 to 398, and that's coming from that's more than double.
That's over 108%.
Yes, that's more than double what it used to be. We've heard about businesses from 481,000 to something like 1.3 million. So some things must be going on well there. But let me ask this. Let me get the rumors out of the way. You spoke inter alia about it. You said that for us to get to the stage that we're at in Osun, everybody sacrificed. It's not just the leadership and the administration, but everybody sacrificed. Now let me zero into the cabinet. Is it true that those guys in the cabinet in Osun, I think the rumor was that they're not paid, they're not drawing salary, and they continue to work happily? What kind of sacrifice is that? How is that possible?
Well, that is not true.
They are paid.
Only Mr. Governor decided on his own volition not to draw salary while he's in office.
Okay.
Only Mr. Governor. That was his decision. But I need to say this. The sacrifice we talked about simply means we have to forfeit part of the things that belong to us. You look at the assembly, for instance, my colleagues.
Okay. On some of the entitlements of other states?
Not even in there's some entitlement that are basic. I take, for instance, vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only house of assembly without an official vehicle in Nigeria. And it's what everybody knows. Not just that, but we knew that it is not. You cannot demand sacrifice from the citizens, and then begin to be indifferent or to be reckless yourself. And so, what have we done? There's something we call Gini coefficient that measures the gap between the haves and the have-not. For any society to be sustainable, and this is what we see in advanced country, you have to ensure that it's not just for you to grow the wealth of your society or your state, but ensure that the percentage of those that will be below the poverty line is reduced as much as possible. And that is why we have been rated to be number 1 and number 2 at different instances. But the very recent one, that I said that the other time, puts us at that in terms of the poverty rate in Nigeria. We have the lowest poverty rate before we got that model right, irrespective of what anybody can say about feelings and emotions. And what exactly did we do? You look at those who are the most vulnerable that are drawing salaries from government. They are those workers at the lower cadre.
Base of the pyramid.
They are if you look at every pyramid, at the bottom you have the largest number of people. That as long as we ensure that their wages is intact,
okay,
they would be able to withstand whatever shock that would come. Because Osun is also a subset of the global entity called Nigeria. Nigeria is also a subset of the global entity called Africa and the world at large. So if the global economy is challenged, I wonder what magic would exist. What any nation or subnational government can do is to ensure that you have what it can take you to withstand those shocks in terms of what you are, but you cannot be totally immune from the shocks. And so that's exactly what we've done. We look at the bottom of the pyramid and we say, every worker on level 8 and below, your salaries will be intact, 100%.
Okay.
Nothing touches that.
Okay.
And as I speak to you, everybody on that level in the state of Osun has been paid up to date. We're not owing anybody a dime. The state was torn in between two things.
For level 8 and below.
And below. When the state,
like fresh graduate and below.
And below. So when the state economy and that of Nigeria was seriously challenged and went into recession, we had to say that we're torn in between laying off workers so that we can know that those that will be left are those who can afford to pay them, or coming up with something that has to be ingenious, that will make everybody have something while the economy, nosedive, because we know that it will not be like that forever. It's going to peak someday.
Okay.
So we call it modulated salary arrangement. not a salary like some people will say, not no salary. So level 8 and below, they're drawing 100% of what they are entitled to. If you're on level 12 and below, they draw 75% of what belongs to them.
Okay.
At first, it was 50%. Then those on level 14 and above are the ones that are drawing 50%. With that, everybody that is working would be able to have something.
How about the cabinet?
So we come to the cabinet was a modulator remedy because the cabinet members fall in the category of those that would have been level 12 and above. So the HEMO, and like...
and for them, it's 50%.
Oh, of course.
Now,
to be appointed or to even be elected is by choice.
So this is a sacrifice. It's not as if it's like a forced savings and that you can get it back later on. It's
no. We need to correct this.
Okay.
We need to correct it. I said the other time, we knew that economy is like a sine curve. It goes up, it comes down, and it's going to rise somewhere, sometimes again. And so for the period of this sacrifice, whatever is unpaid will be paid as the economy improves. And that we have shown example. Okay. We have had costs to get bailouts on 2 occasions. They were used 100% fully for the payment of salaries. Okay. And we have had people who disagree because they believe you must politicize everything in Nigeria. And they have had costs to get the House of Assembly to look into it, get ICPC, get all of that, and we have been given clean bill of health. Now, number 2 is that I need to also say this. Osun has gone back to full payment of salary, and that has been paid for 2 different occasions. Another one is going to be paid very soon. So we have left the era.
Osun has left the era of modulated. So everybody is getting 100% of the salary now.
For 2 consecutive months, full salaries have been paid. I mean, third, it has been paid. And so we will never go back to that era of modulated salary arrangement. But what is the government doing? As we get more resources at our disposal, we begin to defray some of those. Just about 3 months ago, we were able to clear about 5 months, backlog of those salaries. That was the arrangement. And as a government that wants to of the holder of the half and the 25 of the quarter that were unpaid. So as resources come, we defray those things. And the government has actually demonstrated that it's faithful to its words. And that's why the workers are with us. And that's why I say today, as a people, as Nigerians, I mean, as Black people, we must begin to get to a point that we must, appreciate whatever works. It doesn't have to be something across board. Every state has a peculiar, situation and circumstances, and it is the responsibility of the leadership of every state, as well as the people, to decide what will make them to have a future. Okay. I've had cause to make reference to this. When Obafemi Awolowo, the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo, was putting up a television station in Ibadan that was the first in sub-Saharan Africa, there were less than 500 television sets in the entire Western region. But he said this would help our education. This will help the free education policy that we're coming up. So someone would have asked, why are you putting up a television? Who will even get to watch them? When he was building skyscraper, 25-story building in Ibadan, you can even count the number of 2-story buildings you have in Southwest. So which means leadership is not just for today, but tomorrow.
How about talking about human capital development, which I imagine Aregbesola must be very enamored of, seeing as that is also a pet thing of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the 2 of them are known to be, I was wondering how Osun is going to be able to engage with the ongoing minimum wage issue. There are sacrifices going on. You've spoken about the base of the pyramid, which is what really affects what we're talking about here. I wonder what the thoughts of the government of the state of Osun would be, whether you know it, because I have to remind people that you're of the assembly.
I cannot speak on that because I can only speak on issues that we have had cause to engage. I can only speak as as a stakeholder. I can only speak as someone who is an Osun person in and out of office. I mean, I won't come here to speak as an APC person or say things I don't understand. Not that it's politician. I'm going to speak as a Nigerian, as a true citizen of Osun, who is only interested in the general well-being of my state. And so we talk about the salaries and wages. I mean, in all honesty, every state had their input in the course of deciding, and we know it was, a very, long battle and also. But again, on a personal note, it's not even enough for us to keep increasing salary. The truth of the matter is that we must get to the point where the cost of living will go down by virtue of the fact we can keep inflation low. And so there's need for us as a people, as a nation, to begin to look into our productivity as a people. There is need for us to generate more resources, and there's need for us to have accountability and transparency. It should be non-negotiable. The idea of some people still contending whether there is need for us to stamp out corruption or not should go and die a natural death. If you want to have a future, productivity must increase whether we like it or not.
One moment, because somebody has come on the line. Mazi Okoroafor in Abia, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, our guests in the studio.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Honestly, sir, Yuri and our guests, states should concentrate on natural resources where they have comparative advantage. This will help boost their internal generated revenue. For this to function in any state, not only Osun State, there must be a conducive environment, that's environment for business to excel. It will help reduce youth restlessness and unemployment. Today in Nigeria, some states, chief executives, have no roadmap for survival of the state. Now, you see, for these things to move forward, or for a state to be progressive, education is very important, like what our guests rightly said. Because where you don't have a sound and standard education in any state, there is no how the state will function. Thank God for what you have been saying about Osun State, because from primary, secondary, junior WAEC and senior WAEC, and you get to universities, at least all those things should be functional, and the facilities there will be available. Yeah, but today, what do we see? In some states, when you go there, the facilities of our universities, the number of students are more than the lecture halls we have. And even some courses are not accredited. And these are problems in our state. Please, there is need for states to concentrate and stop depending on federal government monthly allocation. Thank you very much. Have a blessed weekend.
Thank you very much, Mazi, for calling in. Education is free in the state of Osun.
Oh yes, and I don't know if I can quickly call.
Yes, please.
We need to we need to also say this. The state, as at 2010, was on average internal generated revenue (IGR) of about 398 million.
How much?
About 398 million per annum. We're doing average of. Doing an average of 300, it's actually between 300 to 400 million. But our state today is on a revenue generation of about 13 billion per annum. And
wait a minute.
That's about
just about almost 400 million. 398
from about 400 million per month.
Yes.
From about 400 million per month, which would translate into, say, about 4-point-something billion per annum. Our average now is about $1 billion.
Okay, per month.
Per month. So that is supposed to say that there are some other, and don't also forget that when you had modulated salary arrangement, I mean, what you even get from payee, from government workers, will also be modulated. Something is covering it up on the other time. And that's supposed to mean that we have been able to see our people productively engaged so that they can contribute to governance. And so you now see from 12,000 corporate taxpayer, we moved to 27,000 from about 62,000 in 2010. Individual taxpayer, we are at over 600,000 today. So, and if people are not earning, they will not even pay back. But you cannot give what you don't have.
Exactly.
And that's not even where we're going, because our approach to it is we want to just increase the tax base. We don't want to burden very few, no. Get more people into the tax net and let the large numbers pay a little, and government can be sustained. But again, government also knows that it has a responsibility to let people know that resources is put into judicious use, which will encourage our people to be responsible when it comes to their civic duty.
Okay.
So we cannot talk on the education.
Okay, but Mr. Mohammed in Abuja wants to join the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you.
It's so good to be on the program. I've been listening to Tunde Olatunji. I actually, when I tuned in, I thought he was the governor narrating all of the development strides they have taken in Osun State. I mean, one of the things that interests me the most is the fact that he is a development economist, which I am as well. I love the way he broke down all of those indices of growth, all of the indices of development in Osun State. I also listened to the fact that he spoke about, education as one of the bane of sustaining the development in the state. Let us not lie to ourselves about how things are done or how things. Yes, we know we're going through some tough times in the nation, but this young man has spoken about today on your platform is something I would prefer, or I would love that some of the northern states, seek their partnership to probably get some of their transcripts and maybe try to put them in place in those places where you have issues with salaries, you have issues with unemployment, you have issues with underage students of school ages who are out of school. So all of these things, I think, models that I believe, we can probably sell to other people, and maybe Osun will get so much more money as well. And, on a personal note, I would love to meet this young man. I think he's some future brain. I mean, of course, he's a brainer, and I think he will be much more useful for the nation, rather than a state, like Osun State. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed, for calling in.
Thank you. I'm humbled. Thank you.
So we're looking at, we've looked at, and it was mind-blowingly beautiful when you said to me that in Osun, the addition of value to areas of comparative advantage, especially in agriculture, is something that has been taken very, very seriously. Because that's the bane of
It is, absolutely. I mean, as a matter of fact, it's more profitable for you to be an agri-processor than for you to be a farmer. But then, if there's no production, there's nothing you can add value to. Yeah. And that's why you must come up with incentives that will ensure that everybody can plug and play into their area of interest. Mm-hmm. Agriculture is not only in cultivation. It's not even haulage is part of agriculture. Indeed. I told you about 10 trucks that I saw of banana and plantain alone. I'm not talking about oranges. I'm not even talking about other cash crop that was leaving my state for Lagos.
How about the whole
those
matter
vehicles?
Of storage? The whole matter of storage is
I need to add this. I need to add this. Within the available resources, we've been able to put up about 3 large, storage facilities, but it's not enough. And we are open to investment in these areas. We are really open to investment in these areas. And so, the only way for it to work. But the essence of some of these things is that people can now know the direction in which the government is thinking. People can now see what the focus of the government is, and they can actually come and partner. I mean, so if we look at some of these things, resources is very important, and that's why I talked about production. As a people, that's why I talked about productivity as a people. Productivity is key. Productivity is important. Productivity is not only affecting our subnational government or state. As a people, as a continent, we need to look so seriously into it. Take 2016 figures, for instance. Africa is put at over 1 billion in terms of population. And then our GDP as a continent in 2016 was just about $1.45 trillion. You pick a country like Germany, average of about 90 million people, doing GDP at the same period in excess of $3.4 trillion. You put a Netherlands with population of Lagos, doing about 1.5 of our GDP. And you begin to look at some of this. It should tell us as something. How can over 1 billion people not be as productive about 90 million people? Human beings, for heaven's sake. Something is missing, and that is infrastructure.
Okay.
And that's why when people come up and say, why will the government want to put money into infrastructure? No nation develops by consuming everything.
Okay.
You must sacrifice today to have it tomorrow.
Comrade Ayo, is it in Oshogbo? Comrade Ayo, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to the Right Honorable, the Right Honorable Olatunji. Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, Honorable Olatunji, I am very, very proud of you. I'm proud that you are one of our parliamentarians. Let me say one of the best parliamentarians in the state of Osun here. I am proud of you. But I want to ask you, sir. See, we build infrastructure in our schools, gigantic buildings, gigantic edifice that is second to none. But my concern is this. All these edifices are built in most of our urban areas. What is the plight? What is the benefit of our pupils and students at the rural areas? Don't you think that will increase our rural-urban migration? That is my concern. Yeah. Yes, the governor of the state of Osun, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, have done so much as far as infrastructure is concerned in the state. He has given us a state where we can go out and say, yes, I am from Osun State. He has done so well. But that is my major concern about the pupils and students at the rural area.
Okay.
It has increased our rural and urban migration. Now, how do we solve this problem? Then I want to ask you, what have we done to improve our human capital development?
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade Ayo. Appreciate your call. Maybe you'll be able to take the first one, especially on that question.
Yeah, very important. You know, I said the other time that what I call the human capital development factory that we made, they're too good to be called schools. You know, we have 11 of them. 2 will be commissioned. As a matter of fact, the goal initially was to have like 20 and virtually have one at least per every local government. But we know it's a function of the resources at our disposal. And we must also commend this. We're the first state in Nigeria to access what we call the Sukuk bond, which was a little over 11 billion, purposely for investment into our infrastructure, our education infrastructure. And with that amount, my state was able to put up about 11 of such world-class facilities. If every state in Nigeria could put 11 times 36 and have what we have today, the story of our education facility infrastructure across the country will change. But the point is now this. We should not only look at the new world-class facility that have been put in place. Over 1,500, of various, classroom facilities had also been refurbished.
Okay. Apart from these models.
Apart from the models. For the models, we're talking about, the newly built ones. We talk about, we have about 20 in the middle school category. We have about 11 in the high school category. And then the elementary school, we have quite a number of them. But what also the government has been able to do, you don't have to build everywhere. What government is also doing is look at existing infrastructure that requires facelift and to be made functional, to be made suitable for learning, and that has been done. And we now, as a people, we look at investment in education infrastructure as serving two purposes. It constitutes the learning environment for the student, and it translates into working environment for the teachers. Because when we build schools, we must also know that those who will teach them must be incentivized.
There's also been, and I don't know that we always talk about this in the same breath. There's also been a boost in business, and by which I mean that, look, there's this school feeding program. You can imagine all those people that are coming in. There are uniforms that have to be made. You can imagine all these. I wonder, is that also?
In fact, I said something. I said, we have the most scientifically managed school feeding program in the country. And I was thinking what makes it's scientifically managed. We have used school feeding to develop a value chain.
Okay.
And this is exactly what it means. Every day, over 3,000 women goes to various schools as cooks to feed children. That is job creation on its own. The inputs into the feeding, we decide to call it, and that's why our own is homegrown. Federal government has adopted it too. It's adopted from Osun. We call it homegrown school feeding. What exactly do you mean by homegrown? There's a day for fish as protein. We don't feed them with iced or imported fish. That is why we are the second developed aquaculture state in the Southwest. We feed them with catfish. So once a week rather, every of our over 250,000 school pupils, we have the highest school enrollment figure in Nigeria by virtue of our school feeding program. It increased by 60% in 2014 because pupils know that when they go to school, they're going to have access to good food. So there's a day designated for the protein on that day is fish, and so we decided to use that to develop the aquaculture sector. The catfish business is really thriving in Osun today. Most states in the Southwest come to us to get their catfish. Number two, there's another day for egg. Every child must eat an egg in addition to whatever they are eating. And so we got to a point that our local production for egg cannot meet the demand because the state government alone will purchase 250,000 minimum eggs on weekly basis.
I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt you because I'm really enjoying this learning and what's going on in the state of Osun. And I have this suspicion that if we weren't constrained by time, you could go on for another 1 hour just recounting all these areas of progress. But I want to thank you very much, Honorable Tunde Olatunji, member of the Osun State House of Assembly and development economist, which I think has shown very much in the past 1 hour or so. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Very good.
Our pleasure. So that's our program. Exciting developments in the state of Osun. And, you know, well, we'll see you on Monday, God willing, with a fresh edition. Do have a great weekend. I am Yori Folari. Bye-bye for now.